We are living in a time that things are moving incredibly fast. With the social media and technology, it's sometimes a bit of a scary ride. And we always have to make sure that we understand that orchestras and symphonic music has a place even in the modern world. And the only way that we can ensure that is that orchestras need to remain relevant. And I don't think things have changed much, even in the 21st century, than they were in the 18th century or 19th century. Because back then, they also had advancements. They had modern things that were happening that to them, they seem like, wow, I mean, can you imagine how proud we are to be living, in the 1820s? It was definitely better than it was in the 1720s. I think because of technology now, we just are aware of it much quicker. But I'm sure people were as surprised back then of modern technology as we are now. And all music at some point was new. We tend to forget that Beethoven had world premieres. And we tend to forget that Mozart had world premieres. And during their lifetime, they were a little shocking because it was a bit too revolutionary. And I don't have to just say about music. I mean, you can say the same about Picasso and Dalí and literature. Novels and books that were considered, wow, too avant-garde. And I think that's just human nature. I do believe, though, that with symphonic orchestras, and now being music director of an orchestra in Nashville, my first responsibility is to service Nashville. Because what works in Nashville for the orchestra might not work in New York, or it might not work in Berlin. These are different places with different fields. The reason why I lose sleep as music director every day is because I need to make sure that as Nashville is moving, the orchestra has to remain a vital part of its life. And our main goal is not only to play concerts, is to enrich the life of our community. For the future, the most important thing is, if we want to have an audience in 50 years, we better start training them now. I love to talk to our diehard fans now, people who are in their 60s and 70s, and the first thing they say is, oh, I remember when I was in school, I took saxophone lessons, I took trumpet lessons, and my grandmother used to drag me to concerts. And now I cannot imagine my life without it. So the biggest investment orchestras and symphonic institutions need to make is in education. If you want to have an audience in 30 years, you have to start training them. Leonard Bernstein, with whom we're celebrating the centennial, was such a prophetic about it, with his young people's concerts, and making sure that you don't sugarcoat this. No, you get these kids and you play them Stravinsky, who was still alive and who was still relevant, and you don't just give them in any way bring it down to the level. No, you explain it to them, because music is the universal language. It is, first and foremost. All you need to enjoy great music is a pair of ears. But this is a muscle and you have to train it. So our job is to make sure that music has a meaning and it has a relevance. If you want to listen to music, stay at home. With an nice CD player, you'll be fine. But if you want to experience music in all of its glory, that's where you go to live performances. And as long as there's that need from people and that it becomes a vital part of who they are and how they live their lives, we're going to be okay. But we cannot only look to the past. As much as we love Rachmaninoff and Bernstein and Brahms and Shostakovich, we always have to remember that if all we give people is cheesecake, eventually they're going to get tired. We need to evolve. Music is a living organism. Thank goodness that we don't play Beethoven the way that it was played 200 years ago, because the world has changed. We have changed. We have to make sure that this music has a meaning. But the ideals that inspired this music, in the sense of Gustav Mahler that I mentioned before, are the same. As human beings, we haven't really changed much. The ideas of hope, love, hatred, optimism, joy, they have been around as long as human beings have been around. And that is the most important thing, that music and art has to reflect those deep emotions.